And welcome back, everybody. We are now here for the World Championship Last Chance Qualifier here. Again, it is me, Gems, casting today with the lovely Fresh Lobster. And what a series of matches we've had today.
First of all, we had to say goodbye to Ricorex, unfortunately beaten by an overwhelmed deck. But the second series was a bit more discussable and interesting. And we do have a bunch of replays here. And that's where a bit of confusion started. We did see Dimitri in a seemingly solid position and then going for a hate spike, which does remove one important attacker from Ace's side, but sacrifices a champion that is this important, the leveled up Riven.
Yeah, I believe Dimitri mentioned in comments that was potentially a mistake in Twitch chat. So it's unfortunate to see, but that's what happens when you have such high stakes matches like this, where if you lose, that's it. That's your world qualifying position gone throughout the whole day, which it's just the stress of that, right? Any little mistake could just end your whole run.
Exactly. And we did see the follow-up attack from Ace come through. I was surprised when I first saw that in the moment. In hindsight, after seeing the replay, I think the blocks by Dimitri were actually correct. And we do see the attack back coming through. The Darius has to be sacrificed here. And it did look like Dimitri still had control of this game. But the reverse swing from Ace coming through, both mites committed into the Glacial Saurian, which is also a lot of foresight by Ace. Very clean play. We double-checked the deck lists. Dimitri was indeed running 3 hate spikes and a Noxian Fervor, and therefore committing all of the attack onto the very big unit that cannot be removed through any means. Secured the lethal, and Ace did capitalize on the mistake of sacrificing the Riven, then finding the right lines of play. Even though then both players played very well, Ace just had exactly the right hand to clear it out. And we jump right back into the bracket here. Some juicy matchups. Sonic against Go. Go, this the Russian player with a bunch of letters as their username, is someone who we highlighted in the last big open tournament broadcast that we had, bringing a triple Shadow Isles control lineup. I'm curious if they're cooking up something similar this time. But apart from that, we did see Major Blazer go through after beating Ricorex, playing against a fellow UK Aftermath Arachnid. Are you familiar with them at all?
Yeah, Aftermath Arachnid's a UK player, very strong player over on the UK side. And we're looking at the other side of the bracket here. We've got Ace versus Sugondis and Ghost of Driver versus Never Walk Alone, Calamari versus Teddy. This bracket is just full of absolute killers.
And Teddy versus Camillari is a matchup I hope we're going to get a glimpse of as well. But the featured match we're going to be looking at is at the bottom of this segment of the top 64, or top 32 rather. Pat versus Broken Ball, both representing the Italian flag. This should be a banger of a matchup. I already peeked into deck lists and we did see quite some creativity come through. I'm also happy to see Timmy to Timid perform well still in this tournament run. And the last segment of the top 64. Any matchups that stand out to you here?
Yeah, Leandro and Red Monty are players I've seen consistently on ladder throughout literally a number of years. Red Monty, I believe, has played and top guided in previous tournaments throughout the year, as well as in prior years, and done fantastically. So great to see them back. And again, just overall fantastic showing from Body Snarl, because that's their first ever tournament showing, and they've managed to top cut and still make it all the way to top 32. So all to play for these players, and any losses means that is their runs unfortunately over. So all to play for here.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that some wildcards are still in this tournament, but now we are about to switch to 2 very known tournament players, Pat and Broken Ball. And the first deck of Pat is Riven Gwen, which we just saw in action, but quite differently built. This one has more versatility and defensive capabilities with 2 copies of Vengeance, as well as a Shadow Isles Tellstones, 1 copy of Quietus. So this can finish the game in explosive fashion, but can also go for a bit of control. Vengeance is very good in this Freljord Overwhelm meta.
Yeah, it's a fantastic choice. And obviously we also see the Jax on. Again, this is a deck we're going to talk about countless times. We're going to see different sort of variations of it. This one's another one of the more spell heavier versions with no sharesies from Pat here for this one. But 3 Sisters and 2 Wild Claws Ferocity. These are all sort of like the tech choices really you see is how many copies of certain cards you're going to be playing in that spell slot.
This looks more like a traditional Jax Ornn list, very different from the one that Ricorex showed us earlier. The third deck, I was actually curious about, PNZ Bandle City. This is going to be a Jinx discard pile, a pretty aggressively built one, just saying no to a second champion. I won't need that. Pretty nasty amount of burn in hand, triple in deck rather, triple Electro Harpoon, triple Mystic Shot, triple Blowback, only one Rummage, but 3 Sub Dredgers, 3 Zonite Urchins. Still enough draw potential, and cards I really like to see are Squeakers and Arena Promoters for generating some Mecha Yordles.
And this is sort of the main first sort of control-based list coming down here that we've seen today from Broken Ball. It's surprising to see there's a lot of the control decks in the meta, but they haven't had a great showing in the tournament. So great seeing the Nora Najin, which is sort of like the, I guess, the off-meta control list you could bring, doing fantastically here for Broken Ball.
We see a lot of spicy one-offs here, not only in the champion split with the 1 Nar, but 1 Solari Sunhawk, 1 Avenging Vastaya as a deny option, 1 Enraged Fire Spitter. Lots of versatilities and tough to play around if you are in the opponent's shoes, if you're in Pat shoes. Second deck from Broken Ball is kind of familiar to what we saw on Pat's side, but using the cannon as the second champion, generating discard fodder in the Mark of the Storms. Also going for Squeakers and Arena Promoters for some Mecha Yordle generation. Also going for a filthy amount of burn with triple Electro Harpoon, Mystic Shot, Blowback, and a copy of Lightning Rush. 2 very explosive decks. And the third deck is one that we haven't seen yet today.
No, it's the El Clasico Scouts brought here from Broken Ball. It's a deck that's constantly come in and out of favor in the meta. Very strong. This is the more, I guess, I would like to say the more combo style oriented version where you basically try and develop a big board. But in this case, we see triple Genevieve from Broken Ball, which is something a lot of lists had potentially cut down a little bit on. And actually only 2 champion strengths, not 3, which is a bit surprising.
The bans have already gone through. Cannon Jinx banned on Broken Ball side. I know this is one of Broken Ball's specialty decks, and Pat should very much be aware of this. I think they're both friends IRL and online, and also have prepped a lot together. So it's unfortunate that they do run into each other so early into the tournament, but we're also happy to see this banger of a matchup, and we do see the Scouts deck against Pat's Jinx discard deck.
Yeah, this is, so one thing to note is obviously this is a standard version of both of these lists. They both have Eternal style versions, and that changes the matchup a little bit, actually. Makes it a little bit worse, I think, in standard for Scouts overall, because they don't have access to keycards like Ranger's Resolve, which actually is crucial for like the early couple of turns to get some favorable trades, and also to do with stuff like Jinx Rockets. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
I would also see Pat being favored here. A couple of factors. One is Pat's deck has more access to value generation. Just picking the very big Mecha Yordles will make sure that Broken Ball eventually runs out of steam. And the other big thing is Broken Ball does not have any fast removal or even slow speed spells to remove Jinx. Broken Ball can only remove Jinx on attack turns, and that might allow Pat to level up Jinx easily and generate 1 or 2 rockets and a bunch of card draws and then run away with the game.
So Broken Ball here, it's something key to know, it's passed without developing any units. The reason that you would be doing this as Broken Ball as a Scouts player is you're trying to float mana for this form up for protection on the Duran Sculptor, most likely. In this matchup, if you can start getting that +1 HP across your board, across a couple of units, that's going to make it very difficult for Pat to actually push for damage. And Broken Ball was worried, obviously, for any type of removal coming down on that Duran Sculptor here.
Yeah, you cannot afford to lose the Duran Sculptor to something like a Mystic Shot. Therefore, a very wise pass by Broken Ball. Next turn, the Sculptor would have been much more safe due to being protected by Form Up. Broken Ball identifying how valuable this card is right now and developing in a bit of a delayed fashion. Pat just going for some aggressive development of their own, pushing in for Nexus damage here, and Broken Ball now has to catch up on the board and starts doing so with the Patricide Broadwing. Yeah,
because you have to remember, as I mentioned, this deck, instead of like being sort of curve-based orientated, it kind of is in the sense that you kind of want to develop the board over a period of turns. The main way this matchup is going to end is usually from a singular big champion strength.
And we do see one in hand, only 2 copies in deck you mentioned earlier on. I think the main reason is just the nerf to 9 mana. It used to be 8, and Broken Ball's deck instead plays 2 copies of Scrutinizing Sergeant and Triple Genevieve as additional win conditions. Also, for Demacia is often going to be enough to swing the game state entirely in your favor. Broken Ball picking up the Morai Warden, which you are happy to see with a Durant Sculptor on board. Low rolls a bit here on the Lurk unit, just a bland 1/3 being generated. While Pat already has mana to play Jinx, but of course doesn't want to do that into a 4 HP formidable challenger unit.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit difficult, but again, this is the thing. Broken Ball doesn't actually necessarily need to attack or take trades, can do it on their defensive turn. There's not, the only real concern is obviously quick attack from Jinx. The other stuff can just trade on the following turn. Has got the Scrutinizing Sergeant available, which is again going to be another two units in 1 card type of play. Can hit a number of very valuable cards such as Misfortune, which would be ideal here because in this matchup, yeah, Misfortune is very key in the sense that a lot of the Bandle City cards only have 1 HP. So it makes your attacks extremely scary.
We do see Arena Promoter come out and pull a very important Mecha Yordle. Its name has eluded me, but it will buff the boards on Pat's side further.
I think it's Trumpetecker.
Yeah, something like that. Trumpetecker, Trumpeteer. But a very good card, especially in a board-based matchup like playing against Scouts. Broken Ball faced with a tough decision. Do I invest in Inspiring Light? I would like to see it, because then you can still play Scrutinizing Sergeant next turn and have mana for Form Up available to protect your cards in trades or from removal options. That's exactly what Broken Ball goes for. This does also allow the pull and trade this turn, because there's no threat of Mystic Shot anymore. The Patricide Broadwing attack is just going to go through.
I don't mind this attack because, but the issue, I guess, with your Broken Ball is you are going to give Pat information that there is most likely a form up in hand here.
Let's see if Pat bites, and it seems like he does. Broken Ball does get a very juicy form up here. Pat going for definitely a risky block. I'm surprised to not see the Durant Sculptor blocked instead. Not quite sure what the reasoning was here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think then it still would have traded and they would have actually removed the Durand Sculptor. But
exactly. And I mean, the Dredger was a 5/4 anyway. Without form up, it would have survived. Yeah, a bit of a dazzling block here, but Pat still has momentum on his side, still has Jinx and mana available. Let's see if Pat actually pulls the trigger on developing that champion.
Yeah, the problem with Jinx right now is it doesn't actually really achieve too much. It'll get the 1 attack in, similar thing to like the Trumpetecker. But the Trumpetecker at least will allow potentially for more favorable trades later on. But the problem is obviously we've seen the Scrutinizing Sergeant come down from Broken Ball, so most likely a 4 Demacia on the next following turn to completely wipe out Pat's board.
Let's see how Broken Ball sets this one up. Committing for Demacia means that champion strength is going to fall further and further behind because we're not banking spell mana, but we do see the snap for Demacia committed by Broken Ball here, passing it over to Pat, facing a huge amount of stats here and gonna have to trade off a lot of these units.
Yeah, because the Broken Ball side, at this point, you really don't have any good ways of dealing with Jinx as a Scouts player anyway. So Broken Ball's realized, okay, look, I lose the ability to play Champion Strength next turn. But Champion Strength next turn is basically doing the same thing as me just playing 4 Demacia this turn. If that makes sense.
Good point. Yeah, Broken Ball really identifying the matchup dynamics correctly here. And just saying, screw it, I'm gonna send it. Just going for full send tempo. Using mana super efficiently so far, using combo tricks super efficiently. I very much like the Inspiring Light play, and that all allowed Broken Ball to snowboard the ball here in a matchup that can definitely be very tricky to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, most likely you're going to see the Getic. So this is like one of the key turns I was mentioning where, because it's standard, this turn changes quite a bit. So Pat can play a bit more risky. There's a couple of options here for Pat. Could attempt to try and set up a Jinx Rocket to clear the board. The downside to doing that is you lose to something like an Inspiring Light, if there's a second one. Or they could just try. Yeah, it's a really tough call.
I really like this by Pat. We already saw an Inspiring Light. I think we're not in a position where we can play around another one. I really like using this whole hand for removal. The Get Excited, also shuffling another Jinx into deck can be valuable later down the line. And now Experimenter, probably onto the Vanguard Sergeant. And all of a sudden, Broken Ball is going to have 4 units at 1 HP. Perfectly set up for a Jinx Rocket. I very much like what Pat is doing here, and simultaneously is going to be refilling their hand.
Yeah, the issue here, though, is that Broken Ball does have refill on the board after the fact, and can set up... will have to float 1 mana, so they can play Sergeant plus MF. You can't really play the Scout, which is unfortunate to set up with Champion Strength. Unless you just only play that.
True, but Broken Ball will also be able to develop next turn. We will see, though, because there's always the threat of another Jinx Rocket, but Pat's hand is going to be quite stacked for a little bit at least, so there's no immediate threat of another Jinx Rocket. There are going to be a few actions before that happens. One thing to note here, just looking through deck lists, that was a one-off augmented Experimenter that came just in the nick of time into Pat's hand. So fortune a little bit on his side, but also just setting up this Jinx Rocket super duper nicely.
Yeah, I have a bit questions from Broken Ball on committing that form up. While it does provide, while it does provide a defensive option to keep your Duran Sculptor alive, it stops. It basically means that you don't get the trade on the Trumpers, because then you would have forced potentially a pull on Trumpers on the Island Navigator, because then Pat would have had to have respected potentially the form up to remove Jinx.
That is actually a good point. Using the form up as a removal option would have been interesting. I think Broken Ball's idea was to just set up a champion strength turn here. And that's why this Feref is such a low roll to pull from the Island Navigator, because I think Broken Ball was really hoping for 2 scout units, just buffing them up immensely and going for multiple attacks, trying to trade off everything on Pat's side. But, I mean, we don't know which weapon the Ferret actually pulled. We will see in a second, but it's just not what Broken Ball was hoping for at all.
Yeah, it's going to die because it is an ephemeral. It's super unfortunate. And now this Jinx is going to just kick into next gear. You might, if you are Broken Ball, change your game plan a little bit. So it was the Shepherd's Authority. You might just want to develop Misfortune here, most likely, and then just go as wide as you can. Unfortunately, though, the double blowback Mystic is close enough, but the only issue is obviously the amount of discard card options aren't high enough. You have the Returner Wrench, which is one way to get a bit more discard, but Pat is just missing the additional cards, which next turn should be available.
Yeah, well, Pat is chilling anyway, having enough burn in hand to just shoot down Broken Ball's Nexus, just not having the mana available. I think there's no way to get lethal this turn, because to get rid of your whole hand, you would have to invest all 8 mana, then you can't cast the rocket anymore. So Pat just needs to not die this turn, and it looks like Pat can accomplish that quite easily.
Yeah, just going for more units. You're not really scared of scouts outside of champion strength. So as long as you've got the discard options, wait. So we're going to draw an additional 2 cards next turn. 3, yeah, that's not enough, right?
I mean, we're not gonna generate a rocket, but we have... you mean, yeah, not enough discard fodder in hand for...
I'm just trying to count.
There would be 1 card missing, that is true. But there's a high likelihood next turn that we can generate a rocket by just discarding the other blowback, and then it would be lethal. So I think there will be plenty of options for Pat. The main focus right now should definitely be to just not die. And I think Pat's doing a good job.
You're potentially losing Jinx this turn, unless you miss. You'd have to Mystic the Petricide, the Broadwing.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why Pat is not committing more. Like why Pat's not playing the other Mecha Yordle, for example. Broken Ball also correctly identifying having to go for a lot of pressure, thinking about how to block off this Island Navigator here. It is going to be the Augmented Experimenter. A lot of, like, it's a very tense situation for both sides still, because both players don't know what the other one is holding. But Broken Ball did not commit an Inspiring Light here, so we can be pretty sure that that's not going to come down. And
So
the third form up is the only consideration.
So next consideration, with the Petricide Broadwing, do you pull Jinx or do you pull something else and force Jinx to block somewhere else on the board?
Jinx survives the other blocks, so I
Yeah.
would definitely be pulling Jinx.
The reason being is you could just be bluffing in like another form up from Broken Ball while also pushing lethal, but I guess Pat is just forced to block no matter what.
Pat's in a bit of a tough situation here, whether or not to play that mecha.
They have to, because I
forger.
think they're dead if they don't. They leave 6 damage up on board without using Mystic, and they want to save that Mystic for the Nexus, I'm assuming. So it's a bit tough. They'd be put into a position where they'd have to Mystic the Duran Sculptor or lose Jinx.
Yeah, and I think the Mystic is going to be used here to keep Jinx alive, to be honest. It's using burn that you would prefer to go towards the Nexus is also a bit iffy here. So as of right now, there's no guaranteed lethal inside yet for Pat, just because of the pressure that Broken Ball is putting out. So both players kind of like fighting to their teeth, like going for the win conditions that they do have.
So the next big problem, by the way, is the Returner Wrench actually landed on Jinx. So that's a discard option gone.
True. Mystic Shot does come through defensively to keep Jinx alive. I very much like it. And the Surrender coming in by Broken Ball. It feels a bit early to me, but also Broken Ball was about to lose most of their board here, and it was a very, let's say, scuffed position to come back from as a scout stack with no interaction. So I can't really blame Broken Ball to save a bit of mental energy, save a bit of sanity, and instead go up against that Gwen Riven deck.
Yeah, and also, as we know, on the following turn, it would have been just blow back into... Actually, that was one off. No, they would have been one off. Yeah, it was actually, they were one off. That was a bit too close to call.
Yeah.
Now we see the Jhin deck coming here out from Broken Ball, switching it up a little bit, deciding Scouts isn't as favored into this matchup, so I'm going to try and get at least one of my wins in.
And this should be a pretty good matchup overall for Broken Ball, also having a good opening hand. Drop the Bomb Pythos is super crucial here because there are so many 1 HP units on Pat's side. Jhin in hand is already gonna start spamming his effect passively from hand. Junk Construct, perfect blocker. I don't know if Broken Ball could have pulled a better starting hand. This is looking super juicy. Pat also having a good start, but just Pat's early units are going to be countered by Broken Ball's deck and by Broken Ball's Pythoses.
Yeah, unfortunate. These Pythoses are going to just have so much removal available to Broken Ball. I also like not using the Pythos here and waiting because this just plays around like potential Hallowed and giving Hallowed to something on the next attack. But again, pretty safe turn here from Broken Ball no matter what.
Everything looking great so far, getting that portal shuffled immediately, and you are gonna draw that mysterious portal in time to generate another blocker. Skip is also a card that is not only gonna give hand info, but also drain Pat's deck of resources, and it already doesn't play a ton of card draw.
Yeah, you're really gonna want to hit cards like the Might and the new Dragon that's coming out, like sort of the big, you can't hit champions, but you can hit like Vengeance is another good one to hit, because I know Pat's running a couple copies of that too.
Riven gets developed here. There's no clean removal option on Broken Ball's side. Decides to not play the skip. Potentially let that attack go through. Bot bank 3 spell mana. And okay, 2 Holloweds does come through. 5 damage pushed. Are you... I'm a bit confused to not have seen that skip be played and used as a blocker.
Maybe just saving it for later on, just in case, to maybe hit a more key sort of end game turn, like the Enraged Fire Splitter, because Pat's going to have to develop and play a lot of their hand out.
Maybe. But we do see Jhin get developed, which of course can accomplish a lot just as a backline engine by just triggering the passive effect over and over. Avenging Vastaya does get played as a shadow in the bush. Of course, Pat has full information over what this card is because it is an open deck list format. Both players know what the other one is playing.
Yeah, so Avenging Vastaya, it's one of those cards we haven't seen for a while because it's very common in... so it's the ambush card. It's a 3/3. It generates a card in your hand to transform it, and when it does, it will stop all fast, slow speed, and skills on the stack, very similar to Rite of Negation
And you additionally get a unit on the board.
Yeah.
Of course, it is more tricky to play around in a Nidalee deck, because then your opponent actually does not know if you do have deny access available or not. But in this case, Pat does have information. The Jhin does swing in, put some more skills on the stack, get closer to that level up trigger.
Yeah, there was a line, I believe, where Broken Bull, in theory, could have potentially removed Riven.
I mean, for sure, it can be like drop the bomb, Pythos, and pastry.
No, I think that if you Pythos the 2-1, it would have potentially stunned the Riven. How close were we for the Jinx?
Right.
Yeah, and then you could have just dropped the bomb and attacked.
Okay, I didn't fully think this through. So yeah, maybe we can get that on a replay later on. We'll see. That is definitely some mental gymnastics to do with Jhin, as always. And we do see the Mysterious Portal generating a... What's the name? I don't remember the name. But an elusive blocker.
It's the Brash card that everyone wanted to work, but doesn't unfortunately work.
Yeah, but is too expensive. Generates another fleeting Brash card, which is gonna be a good blocker here, actually. Yeah, Knuckles is the card of the first one. Thank you. And the third... Like the next elusive is the next fleeting card in hand is gonna generate another card in hand that is actually gonna make you rally as a player. That's the big payoff for going down that line. But Broken Ball does not have any mana generation and will not have access to that. Although rally would look good here.
Yeah, we're gonna see the Riven level up most likely coming down here. All 3 Blade Fragments coming down, which is gonna generate the Blade of the Exile, which levels up the Riven. Now the issue is obviously Riven now gets double the bonus damage from Hallowed, double from Might, doubled from everything, and I don't see a way for Broken Ball to really deal with Riven here.
Yeah, no Wallop has ever been found, no hard removal. In hindsight, like, maybe you were onto something. The Riven was actually a pretty high priority card to remove, and her just getting one attack through already put so much pressure on Broken Ball's Nexus. Now, in a bit of a tricky situation, never having played that skip as a defensive option. Broadmain does get picked up, and that is huge for removal.
Yeah, that's sort of the key deck. This deck was known as basically Broadmain Jhin, essentially, for the most part, or like a Broadmain for the longest time. Really relies on the Broadmain from turn 6 onward, because you run a lot of cheap 1-cost spell removal, which doesn't remove most units in the game. It's fortunate, obviously, in this matchup, there's a lot of like 1 HP on the side of SI, but yeah, Wallop, again, another fantastic pickup here from Broken Ball. Will allow very easy survivability on the next couple of turns.
Back-to-back nuts top decks. Broken Ball just going for a full swing here, hoping Pat blocks with those valuable champions, and then Broken Ball can follow up with some removal, like Broadmain, as well as all of those pings and slow damage spells.
Big problem here, though, is that Pat is practically 1 turn off from a potential lethal, has that Enraged Fire Splitter in hand, which will do 2 damage, and if Pat's able to find a second one, that will be it.
Might is also generally scary. Of course, it will get blocked by Wallop, though. But if, like, Gwen survives with Overwhelm and another card gets mighted, and the Ballista is there, Skip pulls the Might away. That makes perfect sense. That is the card you would least like to be surprised by mid-combat. Skip being the annoying little fellow that he always is, giving a lot of information as well as just game control.
Okay, so the issue with that is obviously Fire Split is going to remove Skip here. You can deny the 2 damage here if you're Broken Ball, but the problem is now Broadmain's not on the board. So how does Broken Ball actually remove these units? How does Broken Ball remove the Jhin? The Riven and the Gwen?
Well, it's fine because only the Gwen has Overwhelm, and that card is going to get stunned. Right? Riven doesn't have Overwhelm right now, and we do have enough blockers for all of the units swinging in. So we're not in huge.
Depends on the weapon,
threat.
right? Doesn't Riven generate a weapon?
Good point on the shard that she generates. Yeah. So there is a 1 out of 3 chance that an overwhelmed fragment is going to get generated. Broken Ball also with an interesting option whether or not to swing here, because the follow-up with Drop the Bomb and or Pastry is going to be quite clutch. Jin also generating more abilities on the stack.
Yeah, I think you want, if you're on the side of Pat, you want to remove Jin just to play around stuns potentially. You can then have the option of your Pat to develop further without having to worry about that too much. It does set you up obviously for the Broadbane. The other key thing is even with the Broadbane, Broken Ball's units are all sort of spells are all very much slow speed apart from the Wallop, so it's going to take a couple turn setups.
But now Broken Ball is actually not in the worst position. I'm curious to see whether Pat open attacks or develops the Ballista. I would like to see some development come in.
The open attack has to happen, because otherwise Broadbane comes down on Riven and then the stun happens on Gwen, and that will shut down the entire turn here.
That's actually a very good point, but developing also gives you one more Overwhelm unit on board that can be buffed with fragments and so on. So it is a tough call to make. My intuition is with Pat here. I think developing is fine, especially not knowing what Broken Ball is actually holding. But I do think the Broadman is going to come in quite clutch here. Well, you can't really play Broadman right now, though, right? You have to, but on one of the Overwhelm units.
You have to play it on Riven, right?
I mean, that would remove Riven, but then you have 2 Overwhelm units swinging in. It's a tricky one. So I think that's what Broken Ball's idea is here, already trying to ping off 1 Overwhelm unit to set it up for Broadman removal, or drop the bomb removal, actually.
So in theory, it depends, because Pat can just end it here though, right? Depending on the shards.
Yeah, now it's
2 shards.
Yeah,
it's 2 shard options here, and that could just end the game completely here.
If Pat finds the Overwhelm fragment, I'm not quite sure what the left one is. I think that looks like a quick attack fragment, but it's hard to say from this POV. And with a huge hallowed buffs as well, this is going to be very scary. The other question though is, does Pat pre-commit all of these fragments and the Riven champion spell? I assume this is what is going to happen.
Their focus speed.
Yes. And like, you don't really want to give Broken Ball more time, because that deck will eventually outcontrol you. It was an Overwhelm fragment all along. So Pat did have full control of this game. We just didn't see it. We didn't know it. And that is it. That was a 2-0 victory. A quick, roll through by Pat.
Yeah, unfortunately for Broken Ball, that is when his sort of run ends up against Pat. Congratulations, Pat, for making it through to the next round.
That is so unfortunate for Broken Ball, though, because he is one of the most consistent tournament players in EMEA, making so many top cuts, but just never quite spiking a top cut. By that, I mean never quite placing super duper highly outside of the last Eternal Open, where he got 2nd place with the 1st place. He would have qualified for the World Championship, so just barely missing it here. And now also making top cut of the last championship. The last chance qualifier, and also just not making it through the grand finals. So unfortunate for Broken Ball not being able to participate in the World Championship, but congrats to Pat. And we're moving over to Ghoster Driver versus Never Walk Alone, another super high profile matchup.
Yeah, while it is a high profile match, it looks like a very sort of over match here. With the set level up, the Karma's level up, we've reached turn 10. We're most likely going to generate an Obliterate here from set. Which will stop the revives. There is a deny, but with the Karma on board, that I mean, the right still technically works, but you're kind of just stalling at this point with no way of real win con here if you're Ghoster Driver, unfortunately.
Yeah, Ghoster Driver with the Chrono Break in hand, which is usually a blowout play and very often will just secure a victory. But Never Walk Alone seems to have played around it nicely, never quite giving Ghoster Driver a lot of revival options. And also, the Showstopper is probably going to get negated here. This could also be left gone through and Chrono Break be played. The issue is, like, Ghoster Driver kind of wants to empty their hand to replay Jinx at some point soon.
The problem is Jinx is obliterated, right? So this doesn't actually bring Jinx back. It brings the rest of the board back though, right?
Right, and this gets notified. That's what the Rite of Negation has been saved for, I assume. If there is another Notify and Deny, and we do see another... Notify. Wait, didn't that get played for 3? Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, that's the one that got played. Oh, Jinx does come back. Okay.
Okay, so it was just a slight delay in the hand graphic animation. It was not a second notify in hand. It just didn't get committed to the board yet in the animation. And Jinx does get revived. And I am a bit surprised. I do think the card says obliterate on the first.
That's why I thought maybe another Jinx died earlier on the turn, and that was the second Chrono Break. We don't know.
Yeah, but Ghoster Driver did have mana, so the second Chrono Break is actually possible. Well, only one, we won't find out right now. Only one way to find out, and that is to ask after the game. But for now, Ghoster Driver is still a little bit in this game, but not really, because the leveled up Jinx got removed right away. That shuts down Ghoster Driver's draw, and this rocket on its own is not enough removal to take control of the board.
Yeah, this matchup in general is heavily favored for Karma Set. As long as they can sort of survive the first couple of turns and deny the Chrono Break, they're usually in a fantastic spot. Ghost Driver is drawing these Jinxes, which is going to help clear up a lot of this board, but there is a deny.
And I think this deny is worth it. It keeps your set
And
alive. It keeps your two
Ages, so we're just going to
concussive
see a million spells.
Wow, Spirits is huge.
Yeah. And this is usually what ends up happening in this matchup.
Yup, and you can just double cast big scrap traptions as well. Deny does come through without even too much thought, and I very much agree here. Never walk alone, keeping the board alive. That was Ghoster Driver's only chance to really bounce back into the game, and I think now we just see those level up. Karma and Set duo take over.
Double Scraptration. Unfortunately, you only get one of them. We get the next show shot stopper here from Never Walk Alone, and that is going to secure this first win here for Never Walk Alone.
Yeah, been there, done that. No need to see this play out. This was a full controlled, there's just no way coming back for Ghoster Driver. And now we are going to see the final matchup here. The score is 1 apiece.
I was going to say Heimer Jace. This is a triple control lineup, and Never Walk Alone bringing back the good old Heimer Jace. We thought it was dead, but Never Walk Alone saying, nope, watch me bring it back.
On the flip side, Ghoster Driver is still gonna need to win with this Jinx Echo deck. Not the best matchup. I prefer to be in Never Walk Alone shoes. It of course depends a little bit on how these lists are attacked exactly, but Never Walk Alone has the option to just not play too much into a Chrono Break most of the time.
Ouch.
And 2 drop borders being drawn by Ghoster Driver, that is so massive.
Is that massive? I'd argue that's not that great. You kind of want to get those for free.
Yeah, no, my point is this is massive in a bad way. Because, not only are you not going to get these for free later on, but also you're basically starting the game down 2 cards in hand. Or 2 super low value cards, and you have no way of discarding them. You have no way of shuffling them and cycling them and making them useful. They're just kind of 1/3 buddies that are hoping to get buffed later on.
Yeah, but as we can see, Ghost Driver is hitting those predicts, so it's super crucial. So in the Echo Jinx game plan, usually the first couple of turns is to find predict into predict into predict, and then try to look for Echo and get Echo down on the board pre-leveled, or at least 3 out of 4 with a predict in hand, like a burst speed. And that looks to be the case here for Ghost Driver, which is fantastic. We do see the first production surge out from Never Walk Alone, gets triple units here. And there's another Echo and another Scrying Sands. There's a good number of options here for Ghoster.
Yeah, Ghoster can assume that 1 Echo is going to get cleared out. Actually, you have to kind of assume that all of your Echoes get cleared out.
Yeah.
Augmented Clockling gets drawn instead. I would say for Never Walk Alone, that was a very good production surge pull, because you kind of needed a lot of blockers, and these, with tough keyword, they actually present great blockers to not let drop so it's still alive. So the tough keyword might come in handy very soon. Most of all, Never Walk Alone has to just be happy to have 3 blockers side by side.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're Ghost Driver, you don't actually have to attack yet, right? You can pass, keep passing, sort of waiting until you hit the turn where you can find the Chrono Breaks, and then set up the sort of attack Chrono Break style turns, which this deck is known for.
Yeah, Ghoster Driver's deck is pretty aggressive, but it's very much a combo aggression deck, and therefore there's no rush to put out pressure and get Nexus damage in yet. But I do think Ghoster Drivers want to accelerate their game and level Echo quickly, and most importantly also not let Never Walk Alone's champions stick around. Because both Jace and Heimerdinger are so impactful if they stay alive for a few turns.
Yeah, I mean, Jace most likely is going to level up very soon. We do see the Echo level up. Voice of the Risen is huge here. Unfortunately, we see Never Walk Alone has got answers with that, with the Hexpliterator, which is also super key here.
Hexpliterator as well as Vengeance, so Never Walk Alone can take care of quite a few of the key cards on Ghoster Driver's side. We do see the Echo level up animation. He is, of course, still going to die. That is why the Aftershock has committed and not the Mystic Shot will play by Never Walk Alone here.
Yeah, also one thing to note is Hexpliterator as well. If it does kill the unit, if it does die, it will obliterate it. So, again, plays around the revival options.
You see a bit of chip damage come through, a bit of board control. Still, I'm liking Never Walk Alone's position here. Also, like having access to Vengeance and Hexpliterator, having the Challenger Jace as potential removal for a champion or a Voice of the Risen. We do just see Heimerdinger get dropped though, because at 4 HP this is very tough to deal with for Ghoster Driver. And Voice of the Risen was the card that got chosen instead of another Echo. I very much like it because Echo is just too easy to remove. But this is also, like, this is probably not going to stick around for long.
No, you're probably just going to pull with Jace here onto the Voice of the Risen and hope for no revival, right? That's what it looks like. Ghost Driver is sort of posturing, right? I've got the Chrono Break here. Do you want to play into it?
Mystic Shot does get played. That kind of speaks towards not pulling, actually, in my
Yes, I agree.
opinion.
Yeah, because you just remove one unit pass, and then that one unit can't get revived.
Yeah, but if you Hexbliterate, it should not be able to get revived anyway, right? Shadow in the Brush gets played for 1 mana here, a nice little discount. This is very useful for Ghoster Driver, because you know that Never Walk Alone only has clunky removal options. They're all going to cost 6 mana. That means after one gets negated by the Avenging Vestia's ambush, the second one cannot be played this turn anymore.
The question is, do you go for the removal on the Voice of the Risen now? Your only real concern, I guess, is if there's some sort of cost reduction on it, but it's very unlikely to have been the case, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only cost reduction that came through was from the Clockling, and you know that a 1 mana Shadow in the Bush has been played, so the cost reduction is gone. I like this play by Never Walk Alone. It looks a bit sad to throw away the Jace just before he levels, but it's just so key to take out this Voice of the Risen to stop the pressure coming out from Ghoster Driver.
The attack with the Forge Chief, because now you can remove the Vestia here with the Quietus, which allows you to then be safe with the Hexbliterator and the Vengeances on the following turn.
That is a great point, but they don't go for it. Huh. So they seem to value that mana generation highly. I'm not quite sure why.
Because now they can flip it and stop the Quietus, and they still keep a 3/3, whereas last turn they could have just removed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with you, James. I would have liked the other line of play more, but
it's just letting it go through.
Yeah, in this case, it's only a tiny misstep. It doesn't matter too much. I mean, I like letting this go through because then you can level Jinx this turn. Otherwise, you couldn't have.
It's true, yeah. But it's just I guess it ends up not mattering in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I think it would have been slightly better to have done that last turn just to play around anything potentially this turn. They could have kept the 3/3 on the board potentially, right? With Spell Shield.
Yeah, I also thought that was the only reason to justify the Forge Chief sacrifice. But either way, like we see why we said this matchup is so good for Never Walk Alone once you do establish control. It's just you have a superior removal options, very effective removal options, and you can put your opponent into a position where they just never get a good chrono break off. Like, no matter if they actually drew it or not. Okay, now it does get top deck. That is like the one chance that Ghoster Driver has to get back into this. In hindsight, also a bit surprising that we did not see the Jinx level up. But of course, Never Walk Alone also left a lot of mana open, threatening those Vengeances and Hexobliterators.
Yeah, it's also Ghost Driver's threatening Rite of Negation. It's a one-off in the deck. And I think that's sort of the big card Never Walk Alone is really scared of here, because that would just be a huge blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Jinx would level up. You'd then force to use your other removal, and then Chrono Break can come in.
Yeah. So for the newer viewers and the less experienced viewers, if you're wondering why these players are not just jamming their cards and why are they not playing their cards efficiently, the reason is that both players do have access to the deck lists of the other, and they know which cards to play around and which cards would potentially blow them out of the game. And that's why both are being very cautious and hesitant to not run into one of those high-risk situations.
Yeah, the downside to that is obviously, I mean, the longer this match goes on, I would say that it actually is worse for Ghost Driver. Unfortunately, Ghost Driver doesn't really have much of a choice, and it's Never Walk Alone sort of dictating the current match and where the state of everything is going. There is that right we're talking about. So, will Ghost Drive go for it? The problem is, you do want it. However, your hand and board state doesn't really help if you do get it right now. You're not actually finding a way to actually win the match.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward because you only get that Jinx level up when you get that right out of your hand. And for now, it seemed like Never Walk Alone was not in a hurry to remove Jinx, right?
Potentially just Never Walk Alone scared of that right. But obviously, we know that there is no right at the moment.
Hexobliterator does come through. And now I guess the moment of truth, we will finally get confirmation on whether or not that obliterated card can be revived. As far as I remember, it shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And a Ghoster Driver does not commit the Chrono Break here. That tech coming in super clutch. I've almost never seen that part of the card matter, right? That it does not kill a unit but obliterates it instead. But here, it's so crucial to the outcome of the game. We did see the Rite of Negation get predicted, but it just comes down too late. Ghoster Driver really needed this one turn earlier. Now Never Walk Alone is in full control. Heimerdinger about to level up here with the Hextech Handler. So every bot is going to have +2/+2. And this looks like all she wrote. Yeah,
so Hextech Handler has been nerfed in recent times. It's kind of one of the main cards that pushed Heimerdinger Jace a little bit out of favor. No more quick attack, no more buff on HP anymore. It's just +1 plus. Is it +1/+0? Yeah, it's just
+1/+0. With Heimerdinger, it would be +2/+1. That's right. I said that incorrectly. We do see more bots being generated, but it's not even necessary. Never Walk Alone, just going for the big lethal swing here. And Ghoster Driver can just barely stay alive, but is kind of out of steam.
Yeah, this is unfortunate, and this is kind of how Heimer Jace works. It's sort of a bit more grindy. If they get that Heimerdinger down, they can just consistently generate blockers, and that's actually a huge problem for the Echo Jinx deck, because even if they do get the Chrono Break turns and they do get multiple attacks going, as long as Heimer's still just generating turrets, it's all for naught.
Yep. And Never Walk Alone mostly navigated this matchup perfectly with never giving Ghoster Driver a good Chrono Break. And there was this one turn where Rite of Negation would have come in clutch, but it just wasn't in hand. You also said it was a one-off, so some good risk-taking, I guess, by Never Walk Alone. And it does pay off here. Mariam used to cycle, Voice of the Risen does get found, but with no board to buff, she's not that scary.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go for the Chrono Break turn on Ghost Drivers this turn, you're not actually achieving anything. Super unfortunate. Ancient Preparation, again, and a bit too late. Unfortunately, that is going to be it for Ghost Driver. Never Walk Alone will be making it through to the top 16.
And Yeah, Ghoster Driver, another very consistent tournament player, unfortunately kicked out here. The chances and hopes for a World Championship qualification of many players ending today, but that does make way for Never Walk Alone and some other success stories. With a triple control lineup, well, finding some good matchups here and not letting that Jinx deck get any win. I very much respect the creativity and the risk in bringing that lineup, but also Never Walk Alone navigated it quite nicely.
Yeah, fantastic player from all the players we've been seeing today. And Ghost Driver, what's been your sort of favorite moment so far in terms of deck lists?
Honestly, still from the APAC tournament, the Teemo Caitlyn Puffcap deck that won the tournament. But from today, it would probably either be Broken Ball's Jhin deck. I think that was a very interesting piloting. But I also very much like this control lineup by Never Walk Alone right here. And we are going to see more spicy decks a bit later on, but we are about ready to hop into a little break here and then follow up with the round of 16. Stay tuned.